Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another modern magazine thing. Because this time I'd like to present Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer Issue 6. Now, I know I'd said I wasn't really going to look at these magazines again because they weren't that interesting to me. Especially after issues 4 and 5 I'd had to go and roam the county for. I'd had to go to a nearby town to pick them up because they just weren't available in my hometown anymore, even though it's a much bigger town than the one I had to go to. But this issue I basically stumbled onto. The other night, after dinner, was going to do the washing up and noticed we had no squeezy, some washing up liquid. So I nipped out to my local shop around about sort of 9:30 at night, just before closing time. Stepped into it, bought some washing liquid, and saw this magazine on the shelf. And when I stumble into role-playing material that close to home, maybe 100 yards from my house, I just wanted it. So I picked it up. I have no idea if the shop's going to keep stocking them, if I will encounter any more, but if they're that close, I'm probably going to buy them because I'm a sucker for buying role-playing stuff when I see it, as is proven by other boxes sitting in front of me for future videos. But anyway, let's have a look at Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer Issue 6. So, this is Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer Issue 6, and I will get rid of the bag quickly because it is very reflective. So I'll throw that to the side. And this time we've got a little more. We've got another nice tin with dice. We'll have a look at that in a second. We've got the magazine, and we've got a bunch more character sheets because we're going up to level 2. So it introduces some new characters which are already level 2 rather than having to level the ones. Now, the tin, it's like the ones which came with one of the early issues. Was it issue 1? I believe it was. A tin with some dice in it. Instead of it coming in a plastic bubble, though, we've got this sheet in front, which is a bit of a pain to pull out. I'm guessing I'll probably chuck it. And it's back to being these, what they call gold dice, but they're a bit yellow, let's be honest. Maybe orange. I can think of the description that I would make for them, but I don't really make it. Again, the opposite sides of the dice are adding up to odd amounts, 0 and 9, instead of 0 and 1 to make 11. The D6 is fine, just some of them seem a little odd. But it's a nice little tin. As I said, we've got some characters here. We've got Crantor Thranax, a human rogue, charlatan. Nice little illustration of him. Ryzagar Stormhelm, a dwarf cleric. Ariana Ilaris, a wood elf fighter. And Merovich Farfoot, a Lightfoot halfling wizard. So, interesting selection of characters. And then we've got the magazine itself. Well, as it features, it says A Guide to Leveling Up, an introduction to art, orcs, and Kingdom of Many Arrows. Inside, we start off with magic items. Let me move stuff to the side. Magical world of Dungeons & Dragons is filled with wondrous items. So it goes through the basics. You know, they're rare. Is it magical? Attunement rules. Then we're straight on to leveling up, talking us through how that works. There's a leaflet in here, which I will come back to. Beyond level 1, gaining hit points, talks about that. We've got an introduction to orcs. You know, fearsome warriors are soft-spoken librarians. When you play an orc character, the choice is yours. Talking about orc civilizations, bloody pantheon, the different gods of the orcs. And then we're on 2 different classes. So we've got rogue features, level 2. What they gain, talking you through what you get at 2nd level. Wizard features, level 2. Cleric features, level 2. And fighter features, level 2. So the 4 characters they've given you, they are not explaining the level 1 abilities, because they already covered those in a previous issue, but they are explaining what happens with the abilities you've got at level 2. And we've got an introduction to another part, Law Section C, for factions, the Kingdom of Many Arrows, keeping on the theme of orcs. King Obald Many Arrows, detailing some information about him, Orc Theatre Grimsh One Eye, which we kind of touched on before, but it's nice to have a little more information. And then finishing it off as they usually do with an encounter, the Queen of Scars. Now, this is a different adventure, whereas so many of the adventures they've included were a simple tomb, a little dungeon to explore. This one is set in, I'm trying to think what the town's called, Fandalen. There it is, Fandalen. And it gets attacked by orcs. While the players are in the inn, a bunch of orcs surround the town, and orcs demand. So you're left with a sort of siege situation, which is a very different adventure for players to take part in. It's a very natural situation, and I can see this being a brilliant way of expanding the way adventures are. Not every adventure is going to be, you go out, you go down a dungeon, you raid treasure, you come back out, and go on the next quest. Some of them are going to be a little bit different. Now, this one is also a bit more emotional, because the Queen of Scars, she's doing this because her son was murdered by Mordred Wester, who is one of the inhabitants, and that's all she wants. So while these orcs might appear to be savage raiders, they are actually only out to get revenge for a murdered family member of their queen. So we've got different ways of playing this out. You know, do the players bring the human to justice and hand him over? Do they kill the Queen of Scars to scare them off? Do they negotiate to hand something over to recompense the orcs for what's happened? It's a bit more grey, rather than it being a clear matter of heroes versus bad guys. The bad guys have a reason for doing this, and actually could be seen as heroes. You know, they've gone out to the human settlement to get revenge for the murder, to bring somebody to justice. We've got a stat block for orcs, and we've got a stat block for thugs. And then finally, we've got the little leaflet where they're explaining there are some delays getting issue 7 of Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer due to a shipping delay. As a result, we've had to revise the on-sale dates. Issue 7 will go on sale later than planned, 8th of November, then be available on a weekly basis. Now, I don't really have any plans to get these, but you never know, as has been proven this time. So that was Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer issue 6. Now, that was one of the better issues. I really liked that one. The dice are kind of trivial. We've had several sets of dice already, so that was nothing special. But the magazine itself, the idea of introducing leveling, which is such a core concept of role-playing games, the fact that you go out and you do things and your character improves afterwards, I think that's fantastic that they're introducing that, and I found it very, very interesting the way they did it. But also the adventure is absolutely brilliant. Instead of it being the typical go into a dungeon, kill monsters, get treasure adventures, which several of the ones they've included were. And to be honest, the late 70s, early 80s, when we became role players, was very similar. That was the kind of adventures we took place in. And this is introducing the idea that stories can be different things. We've had one in a previous issue where it was a journey. They were travelling from A to B and things happened during the journey. And now we've got they're at a location and the story comes to them. The town gets attacked, they have to deal with it. Fantastic stuff, introducing role players, dungeon masters, new players to the idea that storylines can be something different than just simple Dungeons and Dragons. Now, as I've said before, I don't think I'll be picking up any issues of this, but I'm an absolute sucker to role-playing material when it's put in front of my face. So if my local shop, the one at the end of my street, does have further issues of this, I probably will pick it up and I'll comment on them in these videos. But I won't be seeking them out. So once again, this is the end of this series, but we shall see how things go in the future. But anyway, I think I've been wittering on for quite long enough as usual. So thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.